Dr. Allison Justice, Dr. Miyabi Shields, Dr. Marcus Rogan, Ashley Manning, and myself.
You got to get into what you're doing.
Yeah. So
this is going to be a hot topic for years.
Yeah. So it's called the Science of Smokability, or SOS. And really what we're trying to do is a multi-year, multi-phase study. And we're trying to figure out what constitutes quality cannabis. And it may seem like such an easy endpoint, but it's really not. I mean, our phase 1 of Science of Smokability is we were just looking into water activity of 0.45, 0.65, and 0.85. And then we have different components of Science of Smokability. So one component of it is we have a literal smoking machine, and it's really cool. You feed it joints. So it's kind of about the size of, what's that, a toaster oven? Kind of about the size of a toaster oven. And you program it to set a smoking profile, and then you put in a joint and it smokes the joint for you. And we collect the smoke condensate. So as it's smoking, we're collecting samples. We're also measuring like how strong it's pulling, how much resistance, that kind of stuff. And then we analyze the smoke sample to see what chemistry is being produced. So as we move through the Science of Smokability, we're testing water activity. We're going to test nutrient flushing. We're going to test, starches versus sugars for sweetness. We're going to test hopefully things like living soil. Hopefully this lives on for a pretty long time, but really focusing on the dry and the cure, but also cultivation to see from both a chemical standpoint, but also from a user standpoint, how people report quality cannabis. So we actually have kind of a network of people that are signed up for Science of Smokability, and whichever phase that we're able to do it, we send out pre-rolls that are whatever, metric we're looking at, and people take a survey and say, this one smoked really good. And we have this ash card that goes from white to black, and they report like the number that corresponds to the ash color. And then, they rate like how harsh it was, how much resin was produced, the actual volume of the smoke, or like how thick the smoke was, what the taste was like. We can't do this for every phase. For instance, the next phase is on nutrient flushing. And this is really, really important from a health safety standpoint, because we were talking about nutrient flushing. And you might just think, okay, flushing makes it taste good or bad, whatever, right? There's more to the story, because from a chemical standpoint, there's a potential that if you're not flushing, that there's excessive nitrogen in there that when smoked could turn into carcinogens. This is very well known in the tobacco world. They're called nitrosamines that are produced in cancer-causing compounds. And we don't know if these are produced in the cannabis smoking process, because usually there's we're not putting that much nitrogen into it. But if someone didn't flush and they did have a lot of nitrogen, we want to know what that looks like from a chemical standpoint, if it could potentially be harmful to people to smoke unflushed flower.
So you're saying that because people always want to start to poke holes in the white ash theory, and the white ash theory meaning it doesn't mean that it's quality if it has white ashes. Nothing is black and white. There's always going to be people who can add phosphorus or add nitrogen, overdose the plant on nitrogen, and it burns neon white, or they can play games and manipulate. You're manipulating out of the bounds of, in my opinion, real quality. You're cheating the system to get there. Okay, well, you're a good cheater.
That's what the tobacco industry has done. Their research was just focused on a smooth smoke, but they didn't really care about what was safe for the consumer. So you might you'll see a lot of added things, whether that's like glycerol to make it sweeter, or, additional things to slow down the smoking process. And we don't want to add those things to cannabis. We know people aren't adding all of those things. But we do need an objective way to look at it and say, okay, the chemistry in this one could be more harmful than the chemistry in this one. Chemistry doesn't lie. If it's there, it's there. If it's not, it's not. So I think it's really important to get both aspects of, the subjective experience of the smoker, because so many people have different preferences. The subjective experience of the smoker, but the objective analysis of chemistry as well. And together we can start to build that story. And again, we did water activity. We haven't published those results yet, but that's only part of the story. It's just a tiny piece of the puzzle. There's so much more to it. And I also want to add here, I'm not the world expert on quality cannabis. A lot of what we do is learning and engaging from the stoner community, because we know that we collectively are the experts. We collectively do hold a lot of these answers. We just need the way that we need an avenue for people to talk to researchers and say, hey, I think this might contribute, or hey, I'd love to, offer my expertise. Because especially looking at cannabis research, for a very, very, very long time, we were not able to research cannabis. And if it was being researched, it was being researched in a really, really negative light. So cannabis consumers didn't want to contribute to that research because they'd be contributing to the narrative that cannabis is bad. So again, this is why it's so important to have cannabis advocates as researchers, because you're building that trust, and that trust has been gone for a really long time. And to rebuild that trust in research and eventually maybe in academia, that's, I think, where it's most impactful, is that we can tell that narrative from a community perspective.